it's not a fake shot. You could just, you know, just make sure.
Luke's taking a big old bite and doing
And two more are about to walk in. But you can't see. Just come around that corner. All right. Cool. You can take a seat, Rachel. Cool. Don't worry about it. All right. We'll begin. Well, it's estimated that 2 are sold every minute. It's believed that the number of them that are purchased annually is 1.2 million. Experts estimate that the market value of this industry is $32 billion. This makes it the second most lucrative business of its kind. It's estimated that at least 27 million are active today. Now, what are we talking about? Or what are they? iPhones, iPods, Blackberries, PS3s, Xboxes. What? Maybe what are they is the wrong question. Maybe we should be asking, who are they? It's estimated that 2 children are sold every minute. The United Nations Children Fund now believes that the number of children trafficked annually is around 1.2 million. The UN and other experts estimate that the market value of illicit human trafficking is roughly $32 billion. This makes it the second most lucrative crime in the world. It's estimated that 27 million people are currently enslaved around the world. This is more than double than the Africans that were traded in the transatlantic slave trade. Human trafficking is a real problem in our world today. And there are things being done, but there are things that me and you can do today. And this morning I want to alert you to the tragedy of human trafficking and the sex trade and look at what's being done, but call you to participate. I want to begin this morning by telling you a little story. The story of Amina, who's a 14-year-old girl in Cambodia, in her hometown of Kamput, Cambodia, just turned 14. And around this time in Cambodia, usually people help with the income of their families. So it's her turn to kind of go out and look for a job. So she starts her search, and maybe a day in, she's approached by a man who gives her a position at a restaurant as a waitress. She shows up to work right on time the next day, but as she approaches, she realizes that she doesn't really smell Cambodian food or doesn't really see a kitchen. She does see other children her age standing around, but none of them seem to be waitressing or eating for that matter. A man approaches and tells her that plans have changed and takes her to the back of what by this time she realizes is not a restaurant. The man then proceeds to beat her and rape her. And from then on, she'll have clients every night that'll do the same. And she wants to leave, but she can't because they threaten her with her life if she does. You know, Anima is not a real child, but her story is very much real in the lives of millions of children in Cambodia and around the world. The current U.S. anti-human trafficking law, the Trafficking Victims Protection Act, defines sex trafficking as the recruitment, harboring, and transportation or obtaining of a person for the purpose of a commercial sex act. You might be thinking at this point, this tragedy is so grave, and you might be thinking of some distant part of the world like Cambodia or something that this is going on. But according to the ECPAT, approximately 400,000 U.S. children are forcefully engaged in prostitution or pornography each year. And in addition to that, 45 to 50,000 persons are estimated to be trafficked into the United States each year. And of this, between 15 to 17,000 of those are children, forced to participate in commercial sex exploitation. There's so much sin in this world, and human trafficking and the sex trade is like a huge wart on the ugly face of evil in our world today. And all of this, I hope, stirs emotion kind of in you, and it should, in a reaction. And it begs the question, what's being done? What are we doing? What are we doing in this world to prevent this tragedy, to address it? Well, first of all, let's talk about what is being done. In our country alone, the U.S. Department of State issues a 2009 Trafficking in Persons report. The U.S. Department of Justice Civil Rights Division helped enact the Victims Trafficking Protection Act. Both of which sought to provide information and advocacy for organizations and services provided and invite them to participate in the effort in combating trafficking. You just Google the subject and you'll find hundreds of advocacy groups such as Love 146, Children of the Night, and the Polaris Project are some of the first hits that you'll get. So things are being done. People are taking action. But there is still things that me and you can participate in this. And the first of which is to pray. 2 Chronicles 7:14 says, "If my people who are called by my name would humble themselves and pray, and seek my face, and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear them from heaven, and I will forgive their sins and heal their land." At the heart of this tragedy is sin and depravity. Therefore, we must pray that our land would be healed, the whole world. Next, there are some practical steps that you can take. Memorize the stats that I'll pass out to you afterwards. They come from here. These stats I said earlier. Tell them to a friend. Tell them to people you run into. Check out advocacy groups like Love146.com or Polaris Project or Children of the Night. Become aware of what they're doing and get involved. Become an advocate. Elizabeth Janway was quoted saying, she's a Pulitzer Prize nominee, "I'm not sure how many sins I would recognize in the world. Some would surely be diffused by changing circumstance. But I can imagine none that are more irredeemably sinful than the betrayal, the exploitation of the young, and by those who should care for them." Though I don't completely agree with Janway when she says that some are irredeemable. I believe all sins are irredeemable, but she brings up and illustrates a very crucial point about this whole subject. That at the heart of the issue, it's sin, it's depravity, it's evil, it's separation from God, it's a spiritual disease for which God's moving hand is the only remedy. And I know that God weeps at this. I know that He weeps at this tragedy. And in that, we should join Him in His tears and His sorrow. But I also know that our Father is mighty to save. And with Him, we should join in fighting for justice, encouraging the oppressed, defending the cause of the fatherless, pleading the case of the hurting. As God's people, this is not a preference or a hobby or some sort of cause that you like to talk about, but it's a calling for us who follow Christ to be there with these people who are hurting. And so you are awakened to this tragedy. I've talked a little bit about what's being done, but the question still looms. What will you do?